Welcome to part two of the exclusive interview with photographer and videographer Chris Cuffaro. Chris is currently in Australia, and this is the second part of the interview and chat we had with the great man. In this part, we talk about him moving to LA, his career, and what ultimately led him to shooting those iconic over 300 album covers and images that we all know and love. So stay tuned for a very interesting and informative chat with Chris discussing his work in LA. The third part is coming shortly, and that's where we just have basically a bit of a free-for-all. We talk to Chris about his perception of the industry today, of what aspiring photographers face, and we talk film versus digital. So thanks for sitting with us for this part. Part two is an absolute cracker, as is part three. So without further ado, here's more from the great man himself, Chris Cuffaro. And it's funny how some of that starts to now cross over into where you are. So you're in LA, you start shooting bands. Who's the first band that you shoot in LA?
So the first official was Joe Zawinul, the keyboard player from Weather Report.
Yep.
And that was from Musician Mags. That was the first official got hired to shoot. Before that, the shoot that got me started was a shoot with record producer Keith Forsey, who produced Billy Idol for years and produced the soundtrack to Breakfast Club.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was like Giorgio Moroder's like protege.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Joe Zawinul shoot was for Musician Magazine, which was out of Boston. And I became, shortly after that, I became the West Coast photographer for the magazine. And for about 3, maybe 4 years, I did, got to shoot Geore Harrison. The list is long. A lot of shoots for that magazine. Every one of them great. Mark Knopfler, T-Bone Burnett,
Yeah.
Wayne Shorter. It was just like, it was perfect for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess, this is the time, I guess, in my life where I've started to really evolve into appreciating visual art. Well, certainly from probably the late 70s through to now the mid 80s. I'm a sponge. We're in Australia. We're not exposed to that much, but I was a music magazine fiend, much like you would have been, Vogue and those sorts of things. And I absorbed everything, and I was drawn into the perfection and the imperfection in capturing live photos.
Yeah.
So it's the energy and the beauty and all of that for me was what resonated and
well, that's a whole other episode for us, but I can rant about the past and the present when it comes to live photos. I'm very snobby about today's world of being too perfect and too nice and too crisp and too this and too that. I like things a little bit. So when I was 13 years old, I had a discussion with a Buddhist monk. 13 years old, playing basketball at the Buddhist church, and this monk sat down with me. I knew who he was because we used to play basketball all the time. And he taught me the philosophy of wabi sabi. It's WABI-SABI. And everybody should look it up, but I've lived by that philosophy since that day. Which is basically, in a nutshell, it's that imperfection is perfection.
Yeah.
And if you look at my work, you'll see it. I don't care about I'm about the soul, the moment, this, that, and blurry. Who cares? Sharp. I don't care. Just it's all about that imperfection being the perfection. And so that's why I always tell everybody, there's nothing worse that bothers me is when things are too perfect and it lacks soul.
It does, and I think as we sort of progress through this, where we start to talk about where we are today with photography and the approaches towards photography, I guess we'll get to talk on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you were in LA through the height of hair metal and all of that sort of stuff. How did you find that scene? Did you blend to that scene, obviously, given your love of funk and soul
but because in the mid to late 80s, into like by 88, I was touring with George Michael and doing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
The Faith Tour. So I was around the metal bands. I actually knew a lot of them, and I'd go see the shows once in a while, but it wasn't my scene. And Neil Slozauer, the legend
Yeah.
Neil, he's fucking
Yes.
brilliant. He's brilliant. Like he
Yes.
shot, I couldn't compete with him. He was friends with everybody.
Yeah.
So, and do you ever hear Rip Magazine?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so
Long
that was
trend.
put out
Yeah.
Lon Friend, who was the publisher,
Yes.
and it was published by Larry Flint Publications.
Yeah.
I had friends who worked for Hustlers, so I didn't get into Rip right away, and I also didn't try to because I was going after Rolling Stone and Spin and Vibe, and it was
Yeah.
just a different genre for me. But I I saw Motley Crue, I saw a lot of the bands playing,
Yeah.
shot Tommy a bunch of times,
Yeah. Well,
but
you had quite a unique friendship with, or you have quite a unique friendship with Tommy that started back in '85 as well.
yeah,
Where
because like I shot I in '85 is when I shot my first project for a drum company called Simmons Drums, which were the
yeah,
electronic drums.
electronic drum. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first project in drums, and the guy who hired me to do that, still friends to this day, he became like an advertising agency for drum companies. So I shot everything for him. I've shot
Yeah.
over 150 drummers, at least two, 3 dozen catalogs. I know more about drums than I really want to know. I mean, I always tell people I've shot every drummer I wanted to except Steve Gadd or Ringo Starr. Those are the only two that I haven't gotten to.
Right.
I got to everybody else though.
Incredible. Incredible.
But I know like I would shoot like drumhead companies and cymbal
Yeah.
companies and DW Drum Workshop was one of my clients for a long time. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's where I shot Tommy a bunch of times
Yeah.
and Mick Fleetwood and you name it. It was just like all these guys.
Yeah. Exactly. And back in that period of the '80s, I mean, how important was it to have, the right agent, the right mentors, and I guess the right manager around you?
Yeah, what was good, I learned real fast what we call in LA, we call it the hustle. I
Yeah.
learned, I tell people, I'm going to say it. I'm sorry if you guys are offended. The day I moved to LA, I learned rule number one. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And it's not who you know, it's who you blow. So if you're gonna fuck somebody or get fucked by somebody, you get fucked by the right people or you fuck the right people.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time with the wrong people or the bad people.
Yeah.
So, and then this after that, Don tells me it's not what you shoot, it's who you shoot.
Shoot. Yeah.
You could have the greatest pictures of a bunch of nobodies or shitty pictures of a bunch of somebodies.
Yeah.
And I have my whole career is shitty pictures of a bunch of somebodies because that's what matters. People don't come to my exhibitions and go, "Ooh, what lens? What f-stop? What's your lighting? What kind of strobe did you use?" They go, "Oh my God, that's fucking Nirvana."
Yeah.
They don't even photography doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell all the young ones, you can have great pictures of a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah. For
Doesn't mean
sure.
anything.
Now, in a twist of fate in 1991, you head to Seattle to shoot Queensryche of all
Yeah,
bands, one of my
yeah,
favorite bands.
you did your research.
Um, and, $10,000 photo shoot in '91. Can you remember what that project was actually for? Just for my own curiosity, was it?
So do you know Queensryche?
I know. Yeah, yeah, big
Okay.
fan.
So that album, I think it
It
was
was the
Empire.
Empire. Yeah,
Yeah, with
Empire album.
Silent Lucidity.
Yeah,
That was out and just ripping up the charts. And
yeah,
EMI, Henry Marquez from EMI, one of my favorite art directors I worked for back in the day, just said they ran out of photos for publicity. They ran out
yeah,
of stuff. They need some new stuff because they were on fire and that song
yeah,
was everywhere. So they asked if I would go up there and I'd never been to Seattle. And I said, of course, let's go. And so that was fun. And I got to go to Seattle for the first time and I experienced Starbucks for the first time.
yeah. Right.
And the night before the shoot, Jeff Tate took me to dinner, who I love. Jeff was back in
Yeah.
the day was one of the nicest people, nice to me. So Chris DeGarmo as well.
Yes.
So had a great shoot, and then I had a day off, and so I contacted John Silva at Gold Mountain Management, and I asked him if Nirvana was around, and he said yeah, and so he set me up to shoot them on the day off. Dave, they had a new drummer named Dave, and I said okay, let's go. And so I met Dave and the band at a diner, bought them lunch. They were all hungover from the night before, and I bought them lunch, and then we shot, and then I bought them groceries. And I bought Dave Grohl 100 pairs of drumsticks.
That was the one thing I wanted to confirm with you. I had heard that you'd bought him
Yeah.
100 pairs of drumsticks. So
Because he didn't it was I laughed. I was just I'll never forget it. I just, was asking what kind of stuff he plays and And he's like, at that time he was nobody, so he was just playing whatever he can find. And I just said, what do you play for sticks? And he goes, I play these. And I go, okay. And he goes, but I don't have any right now. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I ran out of sticks. I'm trying to get some, and they didn't have no money. So I said, let me order some for you. And I, got them at cost basically, and I sent them
Well,
to.
I guess this ties back to you working with drum companies
Yeah,
and the connections that you would have there. So
yeah.
yeah,
I already had two drum kits myself that I don't even know how to play.
yeah,
So, but it's like I just, hooked him up and he appreciated it. And, I saw them a few months, I think, yeah, March. I think next time I saw him was in July of that year.
yeah,
But good guys. I mean, I always tell people they treated me so well from the moment I met them to the end.
yeah,
I just ran into Dave like 2 years ago, I think, for the first time in a long time.
yeah, yeah.
So
Amazing.
Dave's
And
the best.
how was that? I mean,
Well, it was a funny moment. I'll tell you this quick story. Again, I have a lot of stories.
yeah,
I'm
no, you're
sorry,
having incredible
but
stories. So
you can edit this into two parts. But basically, do you know who Stephen Perkins is?
yes, yes, yeah, bass player for Jane's Addiction.
Drummer for Jane's Addiction.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
So
yes, sorry.
say Stephen, he was producing this band, a band called Air. I forget, from the Midwest somewhere. And so
Yeah,
Stephen calls me up and says, we're recording at the studio in Northridge. Can you come down and take some BTS? And I love Stephen and I can never say no to him. So I said, Stephen, I'll be there. I haven't done that in a long time, but let's go have some fun. So I get to the studio and it's in Northridge and I'm walking around. They're setting up, the gear in the room, and then
yeah,
there's the production room and the board. And I'm walking around looking at everything. And on the walls are all these pictures of the Foo Fighters and gold records of the Foo Fighters and this. And it was just like, I'm like, look at what the hell's going on here? This is weird. So I go into the engineer room and the guy's, working on the knobs and everything. I just look at the guy, I go, why is there so much Foo Fighter shit on the walls? And he goes, oh, this is Dave's studio. I go, what? I go, I didn't know he had a studio. And they go, yeah, it's Dave's studio. And I said, oh, that's cool. Well, that's interesting. I was like, I just felt like that's weird. So I go back out in the hallway and on my way to go to use the bathroom, and I go use the bathroom and I come out of the bathroom. And I'm looking at the walls, and Dave walks by me. I turn around and whoa, I go, Dave. And he turns around and I go, hey, good to see you. It's Chris. And I knew he wouldn't recognize me.
yeah.
Nobody does. He just goes, oh, nice to see you. And then he turns around and walks away. And I thought, I figured that one out. And I said, okay, cool. So the band is like acting like fangirls. And because Steven's there, and you can imagine Stephen Perkins and Dave Grohl in the same room. So the
Yeah.
drummer is like wetting his pants, basically, like, of the band. It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I go in the room and I'm just sitting there, just on the fly on the wall while they're all talking. Dave and Steven are swapping stories and going on and on. And so finally I just said, well, Dave, it's good to see you after all these years. And he's looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I
Yeah.
just said, I go, last time I saw you was with Don Was at the Backbeat sessions. And he looks at me, what? And I go, yeah, I don't know if you remember those sessions, because I totally remember those sessions. And he looks at me, he's looking at me like squinting his eyes. And I
Trying to
and
visualize. Yeah.
yeah, who, and then so I go, but you might remember this better. And so I show him a picture on my phone of the first session. He just looks at it and screams, Chris. And Perkins goes, how do you not remember Chris? And I just go, it's okay. Perkins just starts laughing. The band's
Yeah.
laughing. And Dave grabs me and hugs me and gives me the biggest hug and says, oh my God, Chris, so good. Da, 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 da. So it
Yeah.
was it was amazing. And I said to Dave at the time, it was like months before Taylor Hawkins passed away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I
Wow.
love Taylor.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely. Now, I I think also with the Seattle and the grunge movement, I mean, there were two pivotal bands. There was Jane's Addiction for you, in
Yes,
which
big time.
there is an infamous photo of Perry Farrell, which inspired a Soundgarden song.
Well, what it
So
would be is I wouldn't say inspired. I would say more he wrote the song about the
yeah,
picture,
yeah.
And I used to tell Chris, "Where's my money, bitch? Where's my money?" Yeah, so I never got a check.
No, no. But what was it about that whole Seattle scene that drew you to it? Was there something that
Well,
you
I think
sensed? Was
for
there?
me, my history with it started in '89 when I shot Soundgarden the first time.
Yeah,
Okay, before that, yeah, I liked rock and roll. Of course, I liked rock and roll, but I was also an LA alternative was also a thing. I was getting into Jane's Addiction,
yeah,
Mary's Danish, the Chili Peppers, Thelonious Monster. There's a whole list of bands that were playing at this club called Scream that we were all into. But Soundgarden came down to LA. I shot them for Spin Magazine, and I met them and we did a shoot. And then they recorded two shows at the Whiskey, and it's on YouTube, called Louder Than Live.
Yeah.
Um, and I was there for both those shows. And I just remember just being like, this was something new, the energy. And Chris was just special from the moment I saw him.
Incredible.
And
One of the world's greatest frontmen, I think.
oh, there's that old saying I love that they said it about Robert Plant and they said it about Chris Cornell, that every girl wanted Chris Cornell and every guy wanted to be Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what they said about Robert Plant. And they said it about Chris. And I went, yep, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. Absolute perfect sense, you know.
Yeah. So I was lucky to meet them then. And then it slowly, like I said, slowly build, and a few trips to Seattle for different shoots and different things. Just it built, the relationships built, got to meet more and more people. And then I was hustling, trying to meet these people. I wasn't just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring. I was hustling.
Yeah, for sure. And then there was also, you know, your relationship with Pearl Jam, which obviously has been the subject of one of your galleries as well.
Yeah, well,
The greatest hits
yeah,
Pearl
we
Jam
did that
91 to
last
94.
year in, what was it, 2024? We did two
Four.
exhibitions
Yeah.
here in Australia.
So your relationship with those guys and with Eddie, I mean, there's that iconic photo of him flipping you the bird, and what a great photo that is. You know,
Yeah, I
for
was.
me, it's cheeky, it's got attitude, it's got personality, and again, as you say, it may not be the most perfect photo, but it resonates perfectly for what it's intended.
It's the emotion.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I always tell photographers when I was brought up with the whole thing that you look at the eyes. When you look at a photo, you start with the eyes and you work your way out. And
Yeah.
everything is in the eyes of the person, of the subject.
Yeah.
And you can see it in those pictures. I also was brought up, which only in the last 15 years, I'd say, since I've been doing greatest hits, that I have to do this. But up until 15 years ago, I would never talk about this stuff at
Wow.
all, because I was brought up with, you let the photos do the talking and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's how I was brought up. And I always tell people, if you can't look at my photos and see who I am, my life, my story, or whatever, that I'm actually pretty good at what I do. You can't see that in the photos, then I'm doing a bad job. I just was brought up in a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
I used to tell people, like, back in my day, photographers didn't talk. Even, Avedon didn't talk about his shit.
No.
You just had to look at it. But yeah, Pearl Jam, what I loved about Pearl Jam, I met them in New York City in July of 91 and became good friends with Eddie, and it ran its course. We did lots of things together. We went to see Fugazi together. I took his girlfriend to Hawaii to see the last Jane's Addiction show. We did all these crazy things, but Eddie, it's proven history. The band went a little bit crazy after 2 years of 10, that they stopped doing music videos, and he just kind of pulled away from me, which I understood, and I didn't have a problem with it. And they had to go. He pushed a lot of people away. Well, the band did. He did mostly, but they just had to go figure out their way or how they were going to deal with stuff. I ran into him a couple years later, and we were all good. But I understood it. A lot of people. I just an example. I always tell people. So my first trip to Seattle, March of '91. A year later, all those bands in 1 year, from Alice in Chains, Soundgarden,
Yeah.
Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all four, by the time a year went by, they were all millionaires.
Yeah.
Okay, they went from nothing, and I mean nothing. Ask Charles Peterson, he'll tell you how broke they were. They went from nothing to millionaires in a year. All of them. And some handled it better than others, and some didn't handle it at all. Do you know what I mean? I watched these guys. I always tell people the story about the last time I saw Kurt Cobain. And I said to him, "How's it going?" And he just said, "It's weird, Chris." I said, "What's so weird?" He goes, "When I pull $20 out of my ATM machine, the balance says 50,000." And I went, "Yeah, Kurt, I'll never know what that's like, but it's got to be weird.
Yeah.
It's got to be weird."
Yeah.
Going from nothing to having it was interesting to watch.
From nothing and being unknown to a certain degree to still being able to be a private person.
Yeah.
To being under the microscope of the world in every aspect. That's got to change you when you throw money into that, and you just turn your world on a complete rotational 180 degrees,
Yeah.
and
And again,
it's
I've seen it not just with them, but I saw it with bands in LA. I saw it with actors and actresses. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
shot a lot of people that were like nobodies. And then next thing you know, it's Brad Pitt. Are you kidding me? Like, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what happened? That used to be Brad. But but yeah, it was interesting to watch that grunge thing happen. Again, I was a small piece of that little bit of grunge puzzle.
yeah,
Charles Peterson, who I love to death, is one of the greatest photographers ever. He can tell better stories than I can, and he was there. He was there.
yeah,
But he has but Michael Levine as well. Michael shot a lot. He was based out of New York, but he shot a lot of that stuff, did the Nirvana covers and stuff like that.
yeah,
Those guys have better stories than I do.
yeah, fantastic. So I guess when we talk about you behind the camera too, I mean, the confidence and smarts that you have to have about you when you're directing a shoot or directing people within a shoot, where do you find a place from that where you don't cross the line? It's that the old thing is you get along with certainly musicians by being a good hang. How do you reel between those two elements, I guess, of being,
Well, again, because I started so young, and when I look back on it all, I think shooting from modeling schools
yeah,
helped me work with, short, chubby girls wanting to be supermodels and having to make them feel good and having to make them feel like they were supermodels.
yeah,
I had a great training ground, shooting people that were uncomfortable in front of a camera. Back in the day, if a band in 1991 put out an album, they did maybe a photo shoot for the album cover, a photo shoot for publicity. If it was record was selling, they do a photo shoot for international publicity, and then maybe a shoot or two for a magazine. So maybe 5 shoots in a year.
yeah,
They're doing 5 a month now.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's everybody hated doing photo shoots. I don't think I ever heard nope. Well, the only person that walked in that said they loved doing photo shoots was Courtney Love, and that explains everything to you.
Good
But
luck.
everybody else walked in going, I hate doing this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Chris Cornell, the last time I shot Chris, I said to him, he was just bitching and complaining. I go, Chris, you know what's worse than having to do a photo shoot? And he's like, what's that, Chris? And I go, being the photographer has to shoot your lazy ass. Now shut up, get in front of the camera and do what I tell you to do. And we'll both get this done and go home.
Yeah, 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 for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's it. The sooner we get it done, the sooner we all get
Yeah,
to go home
I would tell people
and
just stand here, shut up, look at the camera. I'll shoot one roll of film. But if you keep talking, I have to shoot 2 rolls and then 3 rolls. And
yeah, yeah,
they understood it after a while. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
my technique has always been, as you can tell, I talk a lot, first of all. But I also, my technique is to distract because everybody hated doing it, right? So I would distract them by talking about something else while we were doing it. So
yeah,
I always ask the question, everybody ever shot, I asked the question, what was your first concert? We'd start that discussion. What was your
yeah.
first album? What's your best experience? Blah, blah, blah. And you just start talking. Oh, stand over here while we're doing this. And you have these discussions. What band? Who's your favorite guitar? You just get them not thinking about that doing a
About
photo shoot.
where they are. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it helped. It helped a lot. Nowadays, I just tell stories and everybody tells me to shut up.
That's fantastic. You know how you turn around and said it's not what you shoot, it's who you shoot. What were I guess along your journey there would have been hype around a band that went nowhere, or there would have been a band that you expected nothing from that became,
A lot of that. A lot of that. I honestly, I shot a lot of bands. I actually want to do an exhibition called Greatest Hit, because everything's greatest hits. Greatest
yeah,
hits bands, but with a
yeah,
question mark. Who?
yeah, yeah,
Because there's
yeah,
so many that, were all hyped up and went nowhere.
yeah, nowhere to
And
go.
and then
Yeah,
there's the little ones that you're like, what? They're big now? I didn't know
yeah,
that. Like it's just weird that way. But I loved it. The one thing, and to this day, I try to do is help everybody. At the last 10 years, I really haven't been paid, and all I do is shoot young new bands. Like while I'm here in Australia, I'm shooting a bunch of shoots with young artists. Anything I can do to help anybody live their dreams, I'm a happy guy. Like I've lived mine 100 times over, so I have to help everybody right now. I help everybody. Like everybody, I'm not lying. I got this week 3 shoots. Next week I think 5. I'm shooting for fun,
yeah,
having fun and helping friends.
yeah. Fantastic, man. That's absolutely incredible, Chris.
Would you rather? I always tell people as a photographer, and I know you're a photographer and stuff, like, would you rather sit at home and do nothing or go take pictures of a band and not make any money, but
Yeah,
have a good experience and have some fun?
Look, that's probably half of what I've done is that I love immersing myself in the local scene and seeing
Yeah,
what's happening. And the camera's always with me. It's a part of me.
yeah.
And like my partner and I, she'll say, "You haven't brought the camera with you," and it's like, "Yeah," and I really feel like I need to go home and get it again, or it's not. Even if it's
You
just
start
in the
having
car
fixes.
with me.
I'm
Yeah,
shaking. You're like, I need a fix. Give me a
yeah, yeah,
camera.
yeah. That's exactly right. So it's always with me, and I get that concept, and I get that part of it.
I just wish I had one of these here. I wish I
Yeah,
had this in 1988 and in the 90s. If I had this, I can tell you the pictures I would have gotten would have been amazing.
yeah, yeah. Well, if we had digital back then too, I mean,
Oh,
just the
I
capabilities
would
of
like
digital,
I would have had the most amazing stuff in the world.
absolutely, from a fly on the wall perspective.
Yeah, big time. Like I always tell people, like doing the first Lollapalooza tour, doing that first one with Jane's Addiction and
Yeah,
everybody that was there, Nine Inch Nails and Body Count and Susie, and just what I saw backstage. If I had one of those, because I'd never pick up my camera because it's so big and noisy.
yeah,
I respected everybody's privacy.
absolutely. And again, that's the same thing with me, where I have been granted those opportunities to be in those private moments. You savor those.
Yeah, I was just talking last week. I was talking to Tom, Youngblood's photographer.
Yeah, yeah,
Great, great photographer, great kid. And we were talking about that he's lucky. I said, he was like, yeah, he's got the blessing of young blood. He's got you know the access, the trust. I said, that's what I had with George Michael. So I totally understand what that's like. George trusted me, and that
yeah.
I wasn't going to break that trust.
No, and you wouldn't do. And I mean, that leads into, I guess, probably the question that I was going to ask you. You did the 30 years of faith, greatest hits here in 2018 for George. Your relationship with him, and as you mentioned before, it was your first time to coming to Australia.
Yeah.
Your relationship with George, again, when you talk about, you know, the Sydney Portiers, where you've been able to spend time with them and build
Yeah.
connections. Was your relationship with George instant? Was it an instant spark from
No,
from
no,
one
not at
creative to
all.
another?
No, not at all. I met him through at the time he was dating a girl, Kathy, who was my makeup artist for years. And she introduced me to George, recommended me to the management, and said, because George had just done a photo shoot with Herb Ritz that he killed the whole shoot. And so I met George, first day was on the Faith video. And I could tell he had a wall this thick and that tall around him
Yeah,
and he couldn't trust. And I understood it, totally understood it. So I went in gently and I went in slowly. And in a sense, it took probably a good 3 or 4 shoots and a few times hanging around that where he let the wall down around me, trusted me, and I proved I could be trusted. By the time we got on the road here in Sydney, I think we were Sydney in March of '88.
yeah,
I had to earn that. I think I felt like that with everybody. I could, it's different now, but back in those days, I was 27 when I shot George, and um, but it's like that whole thing where you know how it goes. You want people to you don't want to straight up say trust me because
yeah,
that sounds like in LA we always say when somebody says trust me that really means fuck you. So
yeah,
you never say that out loud, but you want to sit there and you just want to earn that trust. And I think
yeah.
I have with everybody I've shot. I always tell people it's the one thing I take pride in. Again, a quote that I heard when I was 12 years old, 13 years old, I think, my number from a photographer, the most important piece of equipment you own is your reputation.
Absolutely.
And that's been with me since I was a kid.
Yeah,
And so my
absolutely.
reputation is I don't pay my bills on time. I'm annoying. I talk too much and I'm annoying. So I can live with that.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, if that's
Could be
if that's
worse. It
the
could be
biggest
worse.
crutches you have in your life, then
Yeah.
that's it's not a bad
Yeah.
thing.
If you
Um,
talk to my friends at home, they'll say Chris is really annoying, and I'm okay with that.
yeah, that's cool. Look, this is a great chat, and this is a great hang, and I'm absolutely loving this. But again, as you said, you're out here shooting for you, and I guess for
Yeah.
new emerging artists. But you have quite the history with Australian talent, and probably one of those biggest relationships which again turned into another greatest hits gallery for you,
Yeah.
was our own Michael Hutchence.
Yes, the late great Michael.
The late
I
great
shot in
Michael
excess
Hutchence.
and I shot in excess in '88, in between George Michael shows. Was my
Right,
first show.
and that was your first meeting with
Yeah,
Michael, or
with Michael. Yeah,
that's
first
and
time meeting Michael was in '88 when they started the North American Kick Tour.
yeah, yeah. And was that a relationship that stayed in touch
Well,
and
no, not really. I shot him. I was with him for a couple days. We did, shooting the show, shooting some stuff backstage, just hanging out and stuff. And
yeah,
then, didn't see him again for years. And
yeah,
one of my best friends was a really good friend of his, and so her and I dated for a while and stuff. And it was just one of those things where it just eventually came around again for me to do the big famous shoot with him. But I loved Michael. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met, and by far, I always say that session was in my top 5 sessions of my entire life, by far.
yeah, yeah.
But
And
then
it's amazing
you couldn't
that
take a bad picture of Michael if you tried.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's exactly right.
You know.
And the funny thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that greatest hits Michael Hutchence was just an exhibition based on one shoot.
Yeah, I know. That's what was weird. I keep saying to this day, I remember planning it and telling Amazing Tolly from Blender, who's the best.
Mm,
We talked about the idea, and I said, I've never done a whole exhibition from one session, but there was so much from that session. It worked. It
yeah,
literally worked. And
yeah,
the only sad part about it is on the first day when all these women came in to see the exhibition, there was a lot of tears,
yeah,
a lot of tears. And I didn't think about that. And I was like, oh shit, we need to go buy some tissues. At the gallery. Let's buy some tissue.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it was great. And I got to meet Richard Lowenstein, the great director.
Yes,
He was amazing. I'm a big fan of Richard's. We knew a lot of the same people,
yeah,
that kind of fun stuff.
yeah. Excellent. Uh, if we jump forward to again, you bought out George Michael and Michael Hutchence for Melbourne last year,
Yeah.
and you also did your greatest hits proof sheets, which I absolutely loved. I
Yeah,
thought,
so I
what
did
an
this.
incredible concept.
Yeah, well, I love proof sheets, first of all,
Yeah,
like massive fan of them. There's a photographer, I can't think of who said it, but the quote is photo sheet proof sheets are the blueprint of
yeah,
a great photo.
yeah,
And I've always loved that quote. And that's why I looked at them. They're what do you call it? They are a blueprint.
yeah.
But so last year when I was here, Stephen at Behind the Gallery, my good friend, we
Yes,
said, let's do these one night events. And so we did one night here in Sydney. We did George Michael at the
yeah,
Carrington. And we just like a one night event, sold some tickets, sold some prints. Just a fun night of me telling stories. And then I'd never done anything in Melbourne. Well, Pearl Jam was the first one.
yeah,
So we went back up there and we did a thing it was called George Michael and Michael Hutchence, but I called it Michael versus Michael,
yeah.
George Michael versus Michael Hutchence.
Hutchence.
And the women, the look on their faces, man. That was one of the funnest days ever because George Michael fans are very passionate, you can imagine, and
Yeah,
Michael Hutchence fans are very passionate, as you can imagine. So there I am with my sarcastic, sixth sense of humor, saying, that George Michael owed me $20 and Michael Hutchence was really mean to me, and if they had guns and knives, I would have been dead.
yeah.
And
I reckon so.
yeah, a lot
I
of my
reckon.
friends though that were there, they know how I am. So I always like to do that. I remember when I did the Michael Hutchence artist talk,
Yeah,
I said a remark about George Michael, knowing that my George Michael friends were there. And I said a remark about George Michael, some dumb thing, and the look on their eyes. And afterwards, they come up to me and go, "You ever say anything bad about George, we will kill you." I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, never mind. I won't do it again." But I love them for all. I've made so many amazing relationships from all these exhibitions. I
yeah.
mean, amazing. Like that's why I started it to begin with. I wanted to meet new people, and I have.
Excellent. So if we just go into,
So I got to ask you quickly,
yeah,
who do
sure.
you who do you choose, George Michael or Michael Hutchence?
Hutchence, Hutchence.
Okay.
Just born and bred. First show I ever saw live was Listen Like Thieves tour. You know,
Yeah.
um, I was 14 at the time, and it changed my world, as
Yeah.
far as live music was concerned. So the first two live bands that I saw of international caliber were the Sweet
Okay.
and In Excess. And In Excess bonded me and won me from that day on
Yeah.
as being one of the greatest live bands ever.
Oh, like I said, when I first saw, I mean, I was a big fan for years before I met him and
Mm.
shot him. But when I saw them live, when the Kick album came out, and I shot the show. I was in the pit for the whole show, so I was
Yeah,
lucky. But I was blown away. The band was so tight and so good, and Michael was Michael, and it's like sad that they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's sad they should be in the World Hall of Fame. They were that good.
yeah, absolutely. And
Michael, there's nobody like Michael, period.
no, no, and they've tried, several
Yeah,
times to replicate it, or to replace him, and it's just an impossible task. There are
really.
people that come close and that do
Yeah.
cover his ground well, but there will never be another Michael. You know,
Nope, not no. I don't think so either. And there are a lot of people, since come close, and I've shot a lot of these people, but Michael was one of one. And he was the unicorn,
yeah,
and like I tell people all the time, I've said in interviews, I said on televisions, I've said he was genuinely the nicest guy. Didn't try to be cool, didn't try anything. It was just himself, and
yeah,
it was magical.
yeah, absolutely. Now, the last fashion shoot that you did, when was that, and where
Oh,
and where was it?
actually, what's so funny? About 3 months ago, I shot some pictures for a jewelry company.
Okay,
I was like, my friend, a model friend of mine, has his friend who has a jewelry company, and she calls me up one day, can you shoot some pictures of some diamonds? I go, really? Do I get to keep them? And they're like, no. And I said, so I did it in my living room and did some beautiful jewelry stuff. And they were all like everybody always gets shocked
yeah,
about, I made my name in the music world and entertainment. So they see
yeah,
all that. So when they see me doing something else, they all kind of go, what? And I don't know what you read online or what you read on my sites, but I don't know if you know, Spin Magazine did an article about me back in July
mm,
about one of my alias names. I shoot under 5 different alias names.
yeah, yeah.
So my
Wow,
Spin did an article about my biggest and number one and did a whole 5 page story on me about how I did all this crazy stuff. And so I always tell people, I can do jewelry. I've done it. I can do things.
yeah.
I can shoot whatever I want. That's why I do aliases and things like that.
Yeah, and I guess things like jewelry, where you wouldn't need to correlate that to a name per se.
No, I
It's
also like the challenge.
yeah, it's a
You know what I
personal
mean? Like
it's a
I would
personal
say to
thing.
you, like I always tell, that's how I live my entire life is by the challenge. Because I would say to you, oh, I dare you to go shoot that and make that really great. And if you ever do that to me and just go, Chris, I bet you can't do that. It's like, get the fuck out of my way because I'm
Yeah,
going, that's how I've always been.
yeah,
My best friend in the world, my number one mentor, he'll say to me before these trips, and I bet you can't, I dare you to make it great. And I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. I will
all
make it
right.
great. That's
Game
how I've
on.
always been built.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I guess you almost answered it before, but when we go back to people like Michael Hutchence and Chris Cornell, is the subject or the personality more important when it comes to shooting a musician?
It's what I call a little bit of everything. I don't
Yeah,
know if you saw I did an interview for a Michael Hutchence documentary and I talked about it with Michael and I can drop names left and right of
yeah,
people I call it the it factor.
yeah,
And Michael had it, Chris
yes,
Cornell had it,
yeah,
Kurt had it. I can go down the list of 100 names
yeah,
of
yeah,
just, I don't have it. I never had it. I'll never have it. I'm not even close to it. My job is to capture it,
yeah, and
the it
understand
factor.
it. Yeah,
Yeah. Some people, if you look at some photos of through the years, some great, we'll stick to music, but like Henry Diltz, who captured everybody who's anybody in the 60s and
yeah,
70s. Henry's work is just genius. But look at the looks and the faces, the people, the young
yeah,
Neil Youngs, and the Joan Baez. He just captured it like unbelievable. I think it has a lot to do with film and the process of film and organic and analog and compared to digital but a lot has to do with that. There's all these variables, but it's about capturing it,
yeah.
in the moment, or it might be the person.